can't help, guys, I can't help but talk about the Ericsson 38. And on paper and from photos, I fell in love with this boat. In fact, I was like, I'm going to look at every one of these boats till I find one that I love. And I found a few on paper or on, this is Yacht World, on Yacht World that I was like, I've got to have. This particular one, actually there's 3 here I went to look at. This one's in San Diego. And so went to look at it. And let's take a look quick through the pictures here. And we'll just do, the outside looks pretty good. It looks like maybe there's something going on right in here, like discoloration of that turned out to just be where it had CF numbers on it before and they just rubbed them off. And then the cockpit and all of that looks pretty good. The interior, look at that. Other than being messy with a bunch of stuff, it looks really nice. I will note, it's hard to see, but right here in the floor, it looks pretty bad. Actually, in person, that didn't look as bad as it does in the pictures, which is surprising. We go through these pictures look pretty good, and I'm like, why didn't I choose this boat? It looks so nice. And we go through it, and we're like, okay, it looks good. Look at these, and I kind of fell in love with this boat. Like, I gotta go see this. And I was in Alaska at the time, and I made arrangements to get out of Alaska, get down to San Francisco, drive to San Diego, because that was the quickest way I could get there to go look at this boat. So today, I'm looking at boats again. So for about a year, I've been looking at trying to get back into sailing. And as of about a year ago, when I had to make the decision to close my motorcycle shop, which I had run for about 6 years, I found a few boats back then. Sort of in October, I started taking off and looking at boats more seriously as I was closing my shop. And I actually found one in Mexico. I made arrangements, put a deposit down on it. It had full inspection on it. Went down to do the sea trial on it and personal inspection of the boat, and found out it just wasn't what I wanted. A really depressing time, because I just closed my shop. I'd taken all the money that I possibly could to put into that, to buy that boat and do adventures on it. We were making plans to do that, and it just put me in a real lull. And I'm not wealthy by any means, so I am gonna have to sell everything that I have to be able to make this happen, that excluding our house. Major problems with this boat, guys. It looks like it's got pretty good equipment on it, all of that. Winches and all look pretty good. And there's no pictures of it here, but the hull and the decking, so where the deck and the hull meet in the front, was split. There was a gap about that big in the hull and deck. If this boat hit a wave, many times it would just sink. It would just go under. I was blown away by the fact that this boat is for sale. Unbelievable. So we moved on to the next one, and there was another one. I'm like, okay, gotta find one. There's another one here. This one's in San Diego. I looked at this one as well. Let's see, I'm clicking on it. It's taking a little bit of time. And this one, I'm sure it's hard to tell. Here we go, a little closer, and you can see with my mouse here, I'm pointing that the deck looks pretty bad. This all needed to be repainted. That might be okay. What I noticed on both of these boats, oh, there's a video of that one, is that things were in disrepair. The rigging, the mast on both of these needed to come down because the rigging needed to be addressed. And the mast, all the paint was coming off of the masts. Pretty terrible. You can see here, and I realized this roller furling was probably going to need to be replaced. It was in terrible condition. Chain for the anchor completely rusted inside the housing there, and the chain locker was really, really bad. That's okay. That's not that big a deal. You're gonna have to replace some things, right? As we went inside this boat, everything was just a bit. Actually, this one showed pretty well inside, but if I go back on the deck, the whole deck needed to be refinished. The rigging needed to be replaced. The mast needed to be replaced. Not replaced, but the mast needed to be refinished, so we'd have to take it down, and then it needed all new sails and it needed all new electronics. At that point, just kind of going through the budget, that's going to exceed the price of the boat pretty quickly. Let's move on. Okay, so actually, and to save you guys some time, I looked at about 4 or 5 of these Ericsson 38s, and all of them had the same problems. They were all really old electronics that have to be replaced. They all needed to have the mast pulled down. They all needed rigging replaced. It was a terrible mess. Let's move on to the next boat I looked at. All right, guys, as I open up this one, this boat looks pretty good. This is a Janelle 38. And again, on paper, this is a little bit lightweight for what I was looking for, but about like the Beneteau that I had, and looks gorgeous inside. Oh gosh, you know, I was like, oh, this just looks so super, super nice. And this boat looks like it's part of a sailing school or a charter service. It's got 3 cabins. It looks really nice. I talked to the broker, super nice guy, and this boat had a survey completed on it. So the survey, I asked for him to forward me the survey because I was very interested. I wanted to go take a look at this boat, and they forwarded the survey, and boom, everything falls apart. The boat, the rigging needs to be replaced. It said the rigging had been replaced, so that's kind of strange. All the electronics looked like they were in good shape, but during the report said there was a lot of issues needed to be looked at. The hull, which had just, according to the broker and according to this ad, had just been completely redone, repainted, gel coat done, and new paint put on the outside for electrolysis, all that kind of. Okay, the survey is the thing that shows, because you go look at the pictures and it looked like it had chicken pox, like a massive outbreak of chicken pox. There were blisters down both sides. There was not a spot you couldn't find a blister on this boat. I mean, massive work needs to be done to the hull to correct that, which is a lot. Okay, that's quite considerable. But the number of issues, from the motor not starting to it not running, idling properly, to running it for a while and having it smoke, to, I mean, issue after issue after issue. The boat looked gorgeous. It looked like it had all the right equipment on it. It said it had new sails on it and new fabric to cover the sails. And the problem is, you know, the descriptions show one thing, the pictures show another, but you never know until you see an inspection report. All right, let's take a look at one of my problems with my searches here is, we walk over here and we'll see what I had been looking at right here. My boat length, my minimum size was actually, I have this one set at 35. 36 to 45 had been my boat search. Now, because I never considered buying a boat smaller than that. So I changed that to 30 to 35, and some more things popped up. And an interesting thing is about the design of some of these boats. I'm looking at Catalina right now, and here's a bunch of boats. These are all 34s. Now the interesting thing, look at this beautiful drawing I made. Oh my God. But a lot of boats are designed in a couple of different formats. Like, so this one where the back of the boat is coming up like this, a racing design where the back comes down like that, and then sort of a cruising design where it's a little bit more square these days. So interestingly enough, most of the boats that I've been looking at were these two hull shapes here, in a sense, where you get this sloping back from here, and you'll realize that none of this space is usable. And that's about 5 feet, 6 feet, maybe a bit more of that. There might be a locker in there in the back, in the aft part of the companionway or something like that. A lot of these have transoms that are open. Same here, where this might be a big sugar scoop, and you've got about 4 to 5 feet of this sugar scoop that is used up for a swim step and or maybe a locker back here, but there's nothing else in here for the interior space. The more modern designs, in a sense, and some of these smaller boats, they've gone to a bit more square, in a sense, to where all the space is usable as cabin space. What I found out when I started looking at these smaller boats is a 38-foot boat in these two configurations inside had less space than a smaller, like a 34-foot boat. It was absolutely insane when I finally started looking at them. Let's take a look at this boat right here. It's a Catalina 34. It's a 1986. And my internet connection is about as slow as you possibly can imagine today. The service provider says I have 660 megabits per second upload and download, and I measured it and it says I have 4. Anyways, let's get back to this. So boat looks pretty good. We're gonna get to some interior pictures. This boat, here we go. The interior of this boat is pretty nice. If I scan through here, nice galley. The cockpit size is pretty large, can sit 7-8 people, no problem. Let's see. Oh boy, here we go. A little bit more waiting on these pictures to show up. But what we'll do is we'll get into, so what does that transom look like? So this one, which is called Uncorked, you can see it's just a flat transom, goes straight up. There's no walk-through, just a swim ladder. But that space is completely usable inside. So you've got a locker in the back, and then that space opens up to a cabin. You have a pretty good layout for a dining area. In this case, they've got a little table they put in there, but there's a standard table that goes a little bit larger, and that goes down, brings that into a berth as well. And has one bathroom instead of 2, and that is another thing that saves some space. In a lot of the larger boats, you've got 2 heads. If you used up another 4 to 5 feet of space, depending on the design of that boat, in some cases 6 feet. If you give that up, that room is available now for living space. And I'd rather have that living space than 2 heads. I just would like to have 1 head in actuality. That's what I was looking for. And then this one actually has an aft cabin and a door to go to it, so you can close it off for some privacy if you want, and it's accessible through that galley. It's a pretty good sized aft cabin, actually. It's got a lot of space. It looks like about a queen size bed back there, and then you go forward to the forward stateroom, or whatever you want to call it, forward cabin, and it's got a V berth, which is quite roomy. So a boat like that turns out, and I had never been searching for a 34-foot boat, turns out to be really quite nice. And then I look at the ratings on this boat as well, and seaworthiness and all of that, and it's actually perfect for what I want. So that's actually the boat that I'm looking at right now. I've got an offer on it that was accepted, and we're waiting to get the final inspection. I do have a recent survey that was completed a year ago when these pictures were taken, but I saw this boat, of course, in person, because it's not too far from me, and it looks better in person than it did in the photos, which is just fantastic. So just like that, we go down and take a look at this boat. It's pretty local, but you know my expectations are pretty low. It's a small little marina. Before the broker gets there, I walk around to see if I can find the boat, and sure enough, there it is over in the distance, and it's looking pretty good. Now, he told me the pictures were taken a year ago, so I was like, okay, could be bad. But, yeah, look at these pictures. These are far away. The broker hasn't gotten there yet, but it's looking pretty good. I think that's a clean-looking boat. All the lines look good. The interior is really fantastic. A little messy because, why clean up a boat when you're trying to get it ready for sale? Whatever. And yes, it does have a brand new sail. You saw that yellow bag that's kind of right down there. That has the old sail in it, the old mainsail. There's a brand new one put up. Cushions were just redone. Has new batteries. Floor looks perfect. Actually, it's a really, really clean boat. I'm actually blown away. I'm like, oh my God, this is great. Curbing my enthusiasm a little bit, but I love the space in it. I love the size of it. You can look, there's new lines, new running rigging. The standing rigging looks great. Look at the size of that roller furler up there. That thing was awesome. And so, yeah, I put an offer on it. It was accepted, and now I'm just waiting to get the inspection done. 2 weeks or so, that should be done, and we'll see how it goes. So I can't wait to get you guys on board and take a look at it firsthand, and my wife's first impressions of the boat, because she hasn't seen it yet. All right, stay tuned next week.